This is the bonus round of the Road to Owning because we're cheating a bit with Dr. Karen Felsted, who used to own a practice but doesn't anymore. So you probably know whether you can or cannot be a practice owner.
I think it'd be really embarrassing if this said I shouldn't.
Okay. Well, you have to be honest, though. Don't just talk yourself through these questions. Okay, grab your pen. And please plug it into the first question there. The first question for the associates and everyone we've talked to. Yeah, you got to push it in. Just got it. Okay. Do you really love pets?
I really love pets.
You continue.
Particularly cats.
Particularly cats.
So I might have a cat practice.
Okay, I think that's okay.
There you go. Yeah.
You may continue to the next question.
All right, yay. I didn't get kicked off the island.
Not yet. Do you love people?
That's the hard question. I love people in limited doses. I don't love people 24/7, but I love people enough to work actively with people on a regular basis.
So you'd feel comfortable, you're closer to yes this question than no?
Definitely, because I mean what I do now is all people oriented. So, right. But you know, got to have some downtime. But yeah, I'm a people oriented person.
Continue on the road to owning. The next question is, do you want to own just to pay off your student debt?
Okay, and I appreciate all the people that have a lot of student debt. I don't have any student debt right now, so it's not an issue for me.
Can I ask, when you graduated, was this an issue at all for you or your colleagues who came out of school?
I came out before student debt became an issue. I had $30,000 worth of debt. I paid it off over 10 years at $300 a month. It just wasn't an issue for me. But that wasn't because of anything miraculous I personally did. It was just a different world at the time.
Can I ask you a question then? If you were asking, because I know you sit down sometimes with associates who are thinking about owning, starting to explore this, is this a question that you would ask them, whether they're doing this just to pay down?
Yeah, I think it's a great question because I do think ownership is a terrific way to pay down student debt. But if you're doing something just to do that and you don't like dealing with the management and you don't like people and you don't want to have to manage employees, you're going to hate it. It's going to end up being a terrible idea, and you know you don't want to see your practice go in default or not give you the financial wherewithal that you expected from it. So yeah, a critical question.
Well, I have good news for you. You continue on the road to owning. So the next question, I bet you know your answer to this, but this is a question a lot of associates have to ask, is are you willing to spend a good chunk of your off hours and your weekends on management stuff for your practice?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question because anybody that owns a practice is going to have to do that at the beginning. Ultimately, if your practice is successful, you don't have to do that. You can hire people to do management, or you can pull back on how much you practice medicine and you can do some of the management there. But in the beginning, you're going to have to. It's going to take nights and weekends, and it's going to take learning more about management. So, you know, I think you don't have to love management, you at least have to be able to tolerate it. In the beginning, and even ultimately when you hire a manager, you've got to know enough to know whether the manager's doing a good job. Yeah. If you can't supervise somebody, it's not going to work very well.
Do you feel like this is something you would try to scare off an associate? But I hear this a lot. It's sort of entrepreneurial, where if you're buying into a practice, the start of your practice, whether you're buying into one or whether you're starting one fresh, there's a rough patch at the beginning, and it takes more than a year.
Yeah, I think, and I work a lot with people who are buying practices, who are starting practices, and this is the kind of stuff that I go through with them. And I think this how much time I want to put into it is an absolutely critical issue. And I can think back over people that I've consulted with, and I've had several that I'm like, you should not be a practice owner. And I have been very, very firm about what the expectations are and made sure that they get it. So ultimately, if they do it and they fail, at least they heard. And so far, none of these people have failed. So there is some margin for error there, or they figured it out that they are going to have to put that time in. I think it's a critical question.
Continue on the road to owning. And this seemed like a real basic question, but then I thought maybe it's not for people who are used to being employees or are used to other people making the large picture decisions. Can you do well without being supervised?
I can. I have my own business. I've had my own business for a long time. So I personally can. I think it's a great question for anybody who wants to have their own business. Having your own business can be a lonely thing because ultimately the responsibility for whether it does well is up to you, And while you have colleagues that you work with, it's different when you're the boss and they're not, right? And you don't necessarily, you've got to develop a support system somewhere. You've got to develop people that you can talk to when you need advice. But a lot of the decisions you're going to make are going to be based on what you think is best. So you do have to be able to work unsupervised.
But you can work unsupervised.
I can work unsupervised.
Continue.
Yes.
Do you make decisions both intelligently and quickly?
Well, I definitely make them quickly. I like to think I make them intelligently. Most of the time I think I do, but everybody makes stupid decisions. But I think to the point of being a practice owner, there are going to be decisions that you have to make quickly. There are going to be some other decisions that you've got the luxury you can sit back and think about it. And I think you have to recognize which decisions need how much thought process.
Right.
But I can do it intelligently and quickly.
Have you had situations where someone was an associate and they're a little more labored and careful about what they do, and they're super labored and careful, and you think, I don't know, you can't.
That's a really interesting.
Maybe it's indecisiveness is really what this question's getting to.
You know, and I'd have to think back through if I've personally had a client like that. I'm not sure that I personally have worked with somebody like that, but I think that definitely exists, and I know people like that. So. Yeah, I think that's something, if it's going to take you 3 hours to make every single decision, it's going to be a challenge at ownership. But honestly, if it's taken 3 hours to make every decision, they're probably struggling as an associate seeing clients because,
right.
You know, right.
And we do have a detour for people who thought when it came to practice management, they might have trouble, delegating. Could you delegate to someone? Could you have a practice manager who would help you make those decisions faster?
Yeah, and I think the ability to have a practice manager is a great thing. You still have to know enough to be able to supervise the practice manager, and you can't rely on the practice manager to make every decision for the practice. I mean, they may not make all of the decisions the way that you want them to, and you've got to be involved. What's difficult about this is if you're starting a practice, there's no money for a practice manager at the beginning, and depending on the size of the practice that you're buying and how well it's doing, there may or may not be money for a manager at the beginning. I think you have to count on the fact that for some part of your career, you're going to be the decision maker.
Okay. Continue on.
Yay.
You, Karen, would you consider yourself a caring and compassionate leader?
Yes, I probably lean toward the let's get things done, but I think I'm generally caring and compassionate. I'm a very direct person in how I talk and stuff, so sometimes I have to think about, hey, let's think about how we say these things. Not everybody's as direct as you are.
Right.
But I think I'm cognizant of that in me and recognize that you have to flex your communication style with different people.
Can I ask, did you have that perspective, that good introspective perspective of yourself when you came right out of school, or have you developed that over time?
I probably developed it over time, and of course I had an undergraduate degree and a master's degree before I ever went to vet school. So I've kind of had multiple stages in my career. I think that's something that I've developed over time. Because you end up you hurt some people's feelings, or you don't get the response that you were looking for. And I think every time something goes wrong, we all have to go back and say, okay, was there something I could have done better?
Yeah.
To me, I mean, good leaders do that in everything, and so I've had to do that sometimes and recognize that sometimes I can be pretty blunt and forthright, and people don't want to hear it.
There was somebody else who was just telling us that he thinks veterinary school does not prepare you to be a leader of people at all.
Absolutely not.
So does that mean there are a lot of associates? Is this a necessary thing for a practice owner? Do you need to be a good leader going in?
You have to be a good leader because I think it's too in the exam room. We're used to thinking of ourselves on a pedestal, and our job is to tell pet owners what to do and stuff. But when you're out working with other associates in the practice, or you're working with your manager, or you're working with receptionists or technicians, you may have more veterinary knowledge, but you've got to interact differently with them. Generally, a management style isn't going to work well if you just waltz around and tell everybody what to do.
Right.
There's got to be better communication. You do have to be a leader. So, just because you went to vet school doesn't mean you're a good communicator or a good leader.
Right.
It means you could get through vet school.
That's what tells you. You got through vet school, it meant you got through vet school.
Right.
Continue on the road to owning.
Okay, I passed. I'm used to test taking.
Are you trustworthy and trusted by others? And I wondered if this question was too, it personal introspection, vaguely offensive, but I think some people consider like they're less dependable. Maybe this gets to the heart of dependability. Some people are less dependable on following through.
No, I think it's a really good question, and I think if you're thinking about practicing and building a practice, I think trustworthiness, dependability, all of those things are going to be critical. I think for me personally, I talked about sometimes I can be very direct in how I talk, and that isn't always as popular as it could be. I do think, however, it builds trust, and people look at me and they're like, she'll tell us what she really thinks. I can believe that, instead of being somebody who just says what people want to hear. So I think you can define those terms in a lot of different ways, but I do think they're important.
And you would say you're trustworthy.
And I would say I'm trustworthy.
And trusted by others.
And trusted by others.
You can continue.
I can move forward.
Yes.
Yay. Not like
you
you're leading the questions or anything.
do you always keep the big picture in mind when you're making important short-term decisions all the way?
I don't know that I always do it. I'm not sure anybody does things always right. But I do think I'm good at that, and I think that's important because I think that it's very easy to make a short-term decision without recognizing that there's a long-term impact. And I think we as a profession sometimes have done some things that felt right in the short run, but in the long run have been harmful. I mean, I think about how we've responded to some of the pharmacy issues that we've faced.
Yeah.
And we've done some things that are sort of aimed at forcing clients to buy medications from us. But in the short run, maybe you get a few more dollars out of that. But in the long run, coming back to trustworthiness, you lose the trust of your clients. So, do I do it all the time? No, nobody does anything all the time. I do it a lot, and I think it's a very important issue to being an owner.
So you would say you are more yes than no?
I'm more yes than no.
You can continue.
Yay.
And just there are 2 questions left. Just
Thank
2
God.
questions. Are you ready to own again?
Yeah.
Okay,
sure.
perfect.
In the right circumstances.
Is your family prepared to adapt to your busy new life as practice owner?
Well, my immediate family is my cats, so they're fine. They don't care.
Okay.
Just bring home the cat food, right? But, with my friends and my relationships and my extended family, sure, that'd be fine. But again, I think that's a critical question. And if I were in a position where I had children or somebody or people that were more dependent on me personally, you got to clear that question.
Okay, can I ask one of that? We say no, and then we do give a detour question there, which is, can you talk them into it? And someone said, that sounds awful, but in some situations, our spouses or boyfriends and girlfriends or family members that they live with, older children, are they hesitant to, do practice owners, potential practice owners, have to spend time, and is it okay talking their family into it that we're going to?
To me, the terms talking it into makes it sound like you're coercing people into doing something that you want them to do that they don't really want to do.
Yeah.
But the basic concept of talking about it, to me, makes a ton of sense. I mean, I think any important decision within the people that you're close to, whether it's immediate family, it's extended family, it's a spouse, it's a boyfriend, it's a girlfriend, it's whatever, you have to talk through important decisions, and you would hope they would give the same courtesy to you. And so if the initial answer is, oh my God, no, we're never going to see you, I think you need to talk about realistically, I will spend some of the nights and weekends on management here in the early years, but here's the long-term goal, and here's how it's going to, if it's an immediate family and there's financial dependency, here's how it's going to help us financially, or if it's somebody you're friends with or have relationships with, it's not like I'm never going to see you again.
Right.
So I think those conversations are critical.
There's only one question left.
Yay.
Dr. Karen Felsted, do you finish what you start?
Oh yeah, I finish what I start. Sometimes it takes a while, but I finish what I start. Can I be a practice owner?
If you want to.
Yay.
I'm not telling you have to. You're already very accomplished. But if you wanted to own a practice again, you could. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Fun game.